Hey everyone, welcome back to Therapy and the Soft Life. I'm your host, Asia, and I'm so glad you're here. Whether you've been with me since the very first episode or this is your first time pressing play, I just want to pause and take a second to say thank you for tuning in. It really means a lot. So, I want to jump straight into today's episode because I really feel like it's a good one. When I sat down and thought about what's at the core of living a soft life, one word just kept showing up again and again, and that's boundaries. And I know boundaries can be a touchy subject. For some people, it sounds cold or it feels like rejection. And for others, boundaries just sounds too rigid, which I totally get. It's almost like taking the spontaneity out of life. But realistically, you can't have a soft life without hard boundaries. And yeah, at first glance, that sounds like a contradiction. How can something soft need something hard? But the reality is, softness needs structure in order to survive. Think about peace. It doesn't thrive in chaos, and rest doesn't exist when you're constantly on call for the world. And joy can't grow if you're running on fumes. Boundaries are the container that holds softness together. And without them, softness seeps out, leaks everywhere, and before you know it, you're burnt out, irritable, and wondering why the soft life looks so cute on Pinterest but feels so impossible in your actual day-to-day life. I like to picture it like a candle as an example. A candle looks soft, warm, and glowy, but it only exists because there's a container holding the wax in place. Without that container, the flame would spill over, burn out, or maybe even start a fire. Look at boundaries as that container. They don't block the flame, they protect it. They make sure it lasts. And I feel so many people battle with wanting the aesthetic of the soft life, like the slow mornings, the routines, the intentional living, but don't always want the discipline of boundaries. We want the peace, but we keep saying yes to everything. We want the rest, but let everyone have unlimited access to our time. We want joy, but forget to protect the space joy needs to breathe. That's why today's episode is all about boundaries. What they really are, why they matter, the biggest misconceptions around them, what my own journey with boundaries has looked like, that being the good, the messy, and the necessary, and then some practical tools you can take with you to start creating them in your own life. My hope is that by the end of this episode, you'll stop seeing boundaries as harsh walls and start seeing them as soft, loving gates, because that's what they really are. They're not about shutting people out, they're about letting peace in. So go ahead and grab your tea, your coffee, your water, or whatever feels comforting to you right now, and let's get into it. So I want to start with the question, why do boundaries even matter? For so many of us, especially depending on how we were raised, the idea of being a good person was directly tied to sacrifice. We were taught that kindness meant always saying yes, or that love meant always being available, and that being dependable meant never disappointing anyone. And listen, kindness is beautiful, generosity is beautiful, but when those things exist without boundaries, they stop being beautiful and they start being draining. They turn into exhaustion, they turn into resentment, they turn into those moments where you wake up and think, I don't even know what I want anymore because I've been living my life based on what everyone else needs. And I think a lot of you will relate when I say this. But some examples are like you constantly say yes until your schedule is so full that you barely have time to breathe and relax. Or you pick up the phone for that one friend or family member who always drains you, even though you know you'll hang up exhausted. That's not love, that's a lack of boundaries. But the shift that I want you to make is boundaries are not walls. They're not about shutting people out, they're more like gates. They communicate, here's how you can access me in a way that's healthy, and here's where I have to step back. And let me say this too, boundaries are not selfish. That's the biggest myth. People will tell you, oh, you're being selfish or you've changed. But in my experience, boundaries are the most loving thing you can do for yourself. Because when I have boundaries, I can show up fully. My yes means yes, my no means no. There's no hidden resentment behind my words. And that makes my relationships so much healthier. Boundaries are also about self-respect. They're me saying my energy matters, my time matters, my peace matters. And when I live from that truth, my whole life shifts. I stop being reactive and I start being intentional. And if you think about it, isn't that the core of the soft life? So, boundaries matter because they're not just about keeping other people in check, they're about keeping me in alignment. They're about helping me live the life I actually want instead of the one everyone expects from me. Now, let me get personal because boundaries have been one of the hardest but also beneficial lessons of my life. For so much of my life, I equated saying yes with being dependable. If I said no, I felt like I was letting people down, and I hated that. Deep down, I wanted to be seen as the strong and reliable one that people could always call on. But during grad school, and especially during my internship, that mindset nearly broke me. I was juggling clients, assignments, weekly Zoom classes, and then on the weekends, I was working overnights at the hospital. For months, I was literally working all 7 days. Not five, not six, but seven. And that's a lot on one person. From the outside, I'm sure it looked impressive. People would say, Asia, you're holding it together so well. Or I don't know how you do it all. And I wore that like a badge of honor. But on the inside, I was empty. I'd wake up already tired. I'd go to bed thinking about what I still hadn't finished. My body was tense, my mind was cluttered, and joy was nowhere in sight. I'll never forget this one Monday. I had just finished a weekend of overnight shifts. I got in my car and I was exhausted, and I knew I had 5 back-to-back clients that day. My routine was I would get off of work and go home, take me like maybe an hour and a half nap, and then get up and start my day. So when I was headed home, my grandma had called me and she asked me if I could come over and help her with something. And what did I do? I said yes because disappointing her felt worse than disappointing myself. So I went there and I helped her. And by the time I got home, I didn't even have time to like sleep. Like it was just time to start my day. So by the time I finished my last client that day, I sat in my car and I just felt like I couldn't keep doing life at this pace. And then that's when I realized the problem wasn't that I wasn't strong enough. The problem was I had no boundaries. And that was my wake up call. So moving forward, I started small and protecting my mornings became my first boundary. I set aside maybe 30 to 45 minutes before anybody could reach me. And some mornings I napped, some mornings I stretched, and then sometimes I just sat in silence. But having that short time to myself really changed everything. And then after that, I started saying no. Not to everything and not all at once, but let's say to the extra shift that would drain me or to the extra responsibility that wasn't aligned with my goals. And let me tell you, at first it felt so wrong. Like it felt like I was breaking some invisible rule. But over time, I realized I wasn't breaking anything. I was building a life where I chose me. And boundaries gave me my mornings back, which I really appreciate. They gave me nights where I could rest instead of collapse. They gave me energy for Pilates again and painting and for laughing with my partner without my brain running through a whole to do list. And even now, as a resident in counseling, I still have to check myself because sometimes I'll get into these phases where I'll just always be on go and never stop to slow down until like I'm exhausted. So I have to keep telling myself that boundaries aren't one and done. Every season of life will test them, and some seasons I have to tighten them. Some seasons I'll have to loosen them, but that's really the beauty of it. Boundaries grow as we grow. So I know you're probably thinking, okay, Asia, how do I actually set boundaries? What does that even look like? And I totally get it. It's easier said than done. So I'm going to walk you through a few ways, but I want you to remember something first. Boundaries don't have to be dramatic to be powerful. A lot of times we think of boundaries as these huge confrontations or sit down conversations where we have to lay out our whole case like a lawyer. This is not that. Boundaries can be soft, simple, and made into little choices you make every single day. So I'm going to give you a few ways to start. If you want to write it down, feel free, or just refer back to this episode if you need to. So the first thing is start small. Pick one area of your life that drains you the most. Maybe that's work, maybe it's family, maybe it's your phone. And instead of flipping your whole life upside down, start with one boundary. So that can look like protecting your lunch break, or saying no to that extra project, or letting a call go to voicemail. Or maybe it's you just keeping one evening in a week just for yourself and not moving it for anyone. For me, one of the first small boundaries I set was around my mornings. I decided that no matter what, I was going to have at least 30 minutes to myself before the world had access to me. And that meant not answering messages right away or not jumping straight into emails. And honestly, sometimes it meant sitting in silence. So the second thing is keeping your words simple. Boundaries don't require long explanations. You don't owe anyone an essay. It's as simple as saying, I can't do that right now, or that doesn't work for me. That really is enough. You don't have to say any more than that. I'll give you an example. I used to feel like I had to over explain every no that I said. Like if I told someone I couldn't hang out, I'd say, "Well, I have this and then I have that and or I didn't get much sleep, etc." And by the time I finished, I sounded guilty. So like I just stopped doing that. So now I just say, "I can't today." And that's it. And you know what? Most people accept it and move on. The people who push back are usually the ones who benefited from me not having boundaries in the first place. So just keep it simple. You don't have to go into detail for why you don't want to do something. That's your prerogative. Now, the third thing is listen to your body. Your body will tell you where you need a boundary long before your mind catches up. So pay attention to the tightness in your chest when you say yes, but you really want to say no, or notice the knot in your stomach when you agree to something that doesn't feel right, or the exhaustion you feel every time you leave a certain conversation. That's your body saying, hey, something's off here, so you probably should listen to it. For me, I knew I needed boundaries when every time I answered the phone for certain people, I hang up feeling like completely drained. I literally have to lay down afterwards. And that was my body waving a red flag. So that's something to keep in mind. The fourth thing is digital boundaries. And this one is so real in today's world. I feel like social media will eat you alive if you let it. And the truth is, sometimes the things that drains us aren't even people we're close to, it's what we're consuming. So to combat that, try muting accounts that trigger comparison or negativity, or set screen time limits, or give yourself a phone free hour in the morning or before bed. I started doing this and it kind of shocked me how much calmer I felt. So instead of starting my day with someone else's Instagram story, I started with myself. And that one change, like, set the tone for everything. The fifth thing is relational boundaries, and this one is huge. Sometimes we carry things that aren't even ours to carry. We take on other people's stress and their guilt and their healing journeys. And don't get me wrong, support is beautiful and being there for people you love is beautiful, but you don't have to absorb their weight to prove you care. So, one thing I started asking myself is this mine to carry? And if the answer is no, I can still be supportive without taking it on as my own. That might mean saying, I love you and I'm here for you, but I can't fix this for you. And that's still love and that's still showing someone that you care, but that's also putting your own peace first. The next thing is consistency. So here's the thing, your boundaries will get tested. Like, you cannot avoid that. Somebody somewhere is going to test your boundaries. People will push back, and sometimes that's because they're used to like unlimited access to you, or sometimes because they don't understand the new you yet. But every time you hold the line, you teach people how to treat you. And more importantly, you teach yourself that you can trust your own word. Which brings me to maybe the most important part of boundaries, which is honoring your own. So it's not enough to set them, you have to respect them yourself. Because when you break your own boundary, you're breaking trust with yourself. So ask yourself, if I say I'm not going to use my phone after 9 p.m., but I use it anyway, who am I really letting down? Me. And the soft life can't exist if I keep disappointing myself. So to sum this up, start small, keep it simple, listen to your body, protect your digital space, don't carry what's not yours, and be consistent. Your boundaries don't have to be harsh, they can be gentle, they can be kind, but they do have to be firm. You have to stand 10 toes on what you want and what you need. So let's bring it all back to the bigger picture, which is the soft life. Because at the end of the day, the soft life is not about laziness, it's not about doing nothing, it's not about avoiding responsibility. The soft life is about intention. And it's about choosing what matters and letting go of what drains you. And without boundaries, there is no soft life. Without boundaries, you're constantly rushing. You're saying yes when you want to say no. You're overextended, overcommitted, and underrested. And that's not softness, that's survival. Boundaries create the space where softness can live. They're what allow you to wake up slowly, to savor your tea, to journal, to pray, to breathe. Boundaries are what makes room for joy, creativity, connection, and presence. And I'll give you an example. When I started protecting my mornings, just that little sliver of time for myself changed everything. And I realized I wasn't waking up already in reaction mode. I wasn't starting the day by checking messages or diving into my to do list. I was starting with intention, and that's what softness is, it's intention. Boundaries also allow you to enjoy the people and things you love without resentment. When I say no to things that drain me, I actually have energy to say yes to things that matter. So instead of dragging myself through plans I don't even want to be at, I can show up fully present with the people I care about. So it's like I was saying before, my yes means yes, and my no means no. And maybe the most beautiful part about boundaries is it gives you permission to rest, and that's real rest. That's not collapsing from exhaustion, but actual rest that restores you. And the soft life isn't about doing nothing. It's about doing the things that matters most and letting everything else fall away. So if you've been wanting to live softer but you feel stuck, maybe you should ask yourself, where am I saying yes when I want to say no? Where am I overextended? Where could one boundary give me back some breathing room? And the answers to those questions will point you exactly where your next boundary needs to be. So as we wrap up today's conversation, I want you to sit with these thoughts for a moment. Boundaries are not selfish. They are sacred, they are holy, they are the quiet, consistent way you remind yourself in the world, I matter too. And I know it's not easy. Saying no is not easy. Protecting your time is not easy, especially if you spent years or maybe even decades saying yes, or caring more than you share, or proving your worth through what you can do for other people. I see you and I know what that feels like. But here's what I learned the hard way. Every time you set a boundary, you're not just protecting yourself, you're protecting your peace, your joy, your future self who deserves to wake up rested instead of depleted. You're protecting the little version of you that learned early on to please and perform. And you're protecting the adult version of you who deserves to build a life that feels as good on the inside as it looks on the outside. So this week, I want you to do something simple. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't write a list of 20 new rules for yourself. Just pick one boundary. Write it down, say it out loud if you need to, put it in your phone, post it on your mirror, and then honor it. Watch how different you feel when you keep that one promise to yourself. The soft life isn't built in one big dramatic shift. It's built in these small, consistent choices. It's built every time you say, this is my limit and I'm going to respect it. It's built every time you remind yourself, I don't have to do everything for everyone to be loved. It's built in every little no that makes room for a bigger yes. And I know you might be worried about the pushback. You might be worried about what people will think or say when you start creating boundaries. Some will understand right away and some might not, and that's okay. Your job is not to manage their feelings about your boundaries. Your job is to manage your own peace. If this episode spoke to you, or if you felt seen or even a little challenged, I would love for you to share it with someone who might need a reminder. Because trust me, so many of us are walking around exhausted, resentful, and stretched way too thin. Not because we don't love people, but because we don't know how to protect ourselves while loving them. And maybe this conversation could be the thing that gives you permission to start. And of course, don't forget to follow and subscribe to Therapy in the Soft Life on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and YouTube so you never miss an episode. You can also connect with me on Instagram at Therapy in the Soft Life Pod. So until next time, here's to choosing you, protecting your peace, and building the soft life you truly deserve. Talk to you soon.